I'm leaving. Victoria Hale didn't flinch when Ethan Cole threw his resignation letter onto her desk at 2 in the morning. The 30-year-old billionaire CEO had destroyed stronger men with a single glance, but tonight something cracked behind those cold gray eyes. "You can't," she whispered, and for the first time in her ruthless career, her voice shook. What happened between the brilliant single father and Chicago's most feared businesswoman? How did a chance encounter in an empty break room transform two shattered lives? Stay until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far our story travels. The fluorescent lights in Coleman and Briggs Investment Management hummed their usual monotonous tune at 11:30 on a Thursday night. Ethan Cole sat hunched over his desk on the 42nd floor, massaging his temples while spreadsheets blurred together on 3 monitors. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago. His shoulders ached. His eyes burned. This was the life he'd chosen. Or maybe the life that had chosen him. "Daddy's working late again, baby girl," he'd told Chloe over FaceTime around 8 o'clock, watching her little face fall despite her brave smile. His mother had already put her to bed by now, probably after reading the same story about the princess and the dragon that Chloe insisted on hearing every single night. 7 years old, and she was already learning what disappointment tasted like. Ethan rubbed his face, took another sip of terrible coffee, and returned to the quarterly projections that were due tomorrow morning. Due to Victoria Hale herself, he thought, with a mixture of respect and exhaustion. The woman never missed a detail, never accepted excuses, never showed mercy. At 32, Ethan had learned survival came in many forms. After his wife Sarah left 3 years ago, packed her bags one random Tuesday, and walked out without looking back, he'd had to rebuild everything alone. The apartment, the routines, the fragile ecosystem of work, daycare, groceries, homework, bedtime stories, and somehow finding 5 minutes to remember he was still human. Some days he succeeded, most days he just survived. The promotion to senior financial analyst 6 months ago should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like a trap. More money, yes, desperately needed money, but also more hours, more pressure, more nights exactly like this one where he chose numbers over tucking his daughter into bed. Ethan saved his work and stood, his back cracking in 3 places. He needed to stretch, maybe grab some water. Definitely needed to look at something other than financial models before his brain melted entirely. The 42nd floor was a ghost town this late. Most analysts had left by 9. The ambitious ones pushed until 10. Only the desperate or the damned stayed past 11, and Ethan wasn't sure which category he fell into anymore. He wandered toward the break room, expecting it to be empty. It usually was, but the light was on. Ethan paused outside the door, suddenly aware he hadn't seen another living person in over 2 hours. The building felt different at night, hollow, almost haunted by the ghosts of 1,000 anxious phone calls and bitter negotiations. He almost turned around, almost went back to his desk, but he heard something that stopped him cold. Someone was crying, not loud, theatrical crying. Quiet crying, the dangerous kind. The kind that came from somewhere deep and broken, the kind people tried desperately to hide. Ethan's hand hovered over the door frame. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, mind his own business, don't get involved. In a place like Coleman and Briggs, showing weakness was suicide. Witnessing someone else's weakness was even worse. But that sound, it was too raw, too real. He knocked gently. "Hello? You okay in there?" The crying stopped instantly. Silence. Then a voice, cold and controlled. "Go away." Ethan recognized that voice. Everyone in the building recognized that voice. Victoria Hale. His heart dropped straight through the floor. Of all the people to find crying alone in a break room at midnight, it had to be the CEO. The woman who'd built a billion-dollar empire before 30. The woman whose reputation for ruthless perfection had grown so legendary that grown men literally trembled before quarterly reviews. "Walk away," his brain screamed. "Walk away right now before this gets worse." But Ethan had been the one crying alone in empty rooms too many times to ignore that sound. He pushed the door open slowly. Victoria stood by the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city, her back to him, arms wrapped around herself. Even from behind, she looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Tailored black suit, hair perfectly styled, not a thread out of place, except her shoulders were shaking. "I said go away." Her voice was steadier now, but Ethan caught the tremor underneath. "I know," he said quietly, "but I've been where you are, and nobody should be alone when they're—" "When they're what, Mr. Cole?" She spun around, and Ethan saw her face for the first time. Victoria Hale was beautiful in that untouchable, terrifying way that made men stupid. Sharp cheekbones, gray eyes that could cut through steel. A mouth that had probably never smiled at anything that didn't directly increase shareholder value. But those eyes were red, her makeup was smudged, and despite her rigid posture, she looked absolutely wrecked. "When they're having a hard night," Ethan finished carefully. "I don't have hard nights." Victoria turned back to the window, her reflection ghostly against the city lights. "I have quarterly earnings calls and board meetings and hostile takeover attempts. I don't have feelings." "Right," Ethan said. "My mistake." He should leave. This conversation was career suicide. You didn't see Victoria Hale vulnerable and live to tell about it. But something kept his feet planted. Below them, Grant Park stretched out like a dark emerald, dotted with streetlights. Even at this hour, couples walked hand in hand along the paths. A group of college kids played frisbee under the floodlights. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that 42 floors above them, two strangers were discovering they might be equally broken. "Do you know what I was doing?" Victoria asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan waited. "I was watching them. Those people down there." She pressed one manicured finger against the glass. "Every night for the past 6 months, I stand in this exact spot and watch people be happy. Couples holding hands, families eating ice cream, friends laughing about nothing important." She laughed, but it sounded like glass breaking. "Pathetic, right? 30 years old, $1 billion in assets. Named to Forbes as 30 under 33 years running. And I spend my nights watching strangers live the life I'll never have." Ethan moved closer, stopping a respectful distance away. "Why won't you have it?" "Because people like me don't get happy endings, Mr. Cole." Victoria's reflection met his in the glass. "We get empires and enemies and absolutely nothing that matters when we're dying alone at 80. The bitterness in her voice hit Ethan like a physical force. He'd heard variations of that same despair in his own head during the worst nights after Sarah left. The ones where Chloe was asleep and the apartment was too quiet, and he'd wonder if he'd ever feel anything other than tired again. "I'm a single dad," Ethan said quietly. "My daughter is 7. Her mother left when she was 4 because being a parent was too hard, and I was too boring. Most days I wake up at 5:30, make breakfast, pack lunches, drop Chloe at school, work 10 hours, pick her up, make dinner, help with homework, do bath time, read stories, and collapse into bed wondering if I'm completely screwing her up." Victoria turned slightly, actually looking at him now. "I haven't been on a date in 3 years, Ethan continued. "I can't remember the last time I did something just because I wanted to. I'm 32 years old and sometimes I feel about 100. So when you talk about watching other people be happy," he gestured at the window. "Yeah, I understand that." For a long moment, Victoria just stared at him. Not with her usual calculating CEO gaze, but with something rawer, surprised maybe, or suspicious. "You're not supposed to tell me that," she said finally. "Tell you what?" "The truth. People don't tell me the truth. They tell me what I want to hear or what will get them promoted, or what will keep them from getting fired." Her eyes narrowed. "So what are you doing, Mr. Cole? What angle are you working?" "No angle." Ethan shrugged. "You looked sad. I know what sad feels like. That's it." "That's it," Victoria repeated, tasting the words like they were foreign. "Nobody is ever just honest without wanting something." "Maybe you've been talking to the wrong people." Victoria laughed again, sharper this time. "I don't talk to anyone, not really. I give orders, approve budgets, fire underperformers, and occasionally terrorize board members into submission. But actual conversations? Where people say what they mean instead of what's strategic." She shook her head. "Those don't exist in my world." "Sounds lonely." "It is." The admission seemed to surprise her as much as it surprised Ethan. Victoria wrapped her arms tighter around herself, suddenly looking smaller despite her commanding presence. "It's incredibly lonely. But that's the price, isn't it? Power, success, respect, they all cost something, and what they cost is everything else." Ethan thought about his own life, the sacrifices he'd made, the nights away from Chloe, The exhaustion that had become so constant he barely noticed it anymore. Maybe the price is too high, he said. Maybe. Victoria's reflection smiled, sad and bitter. But I wouldn't know how to pay any other way. This is who I am, Mr. Cole. The Ice Queen, the robot, the woman who once made a VP cry during a presentation because his profit margins were off by 0.3%. Did you apologize? No, his margins were off. She paused. Though I did send him a very generous severance package when I fired him 2 weeks later. Generous? I'm not a monster, just exceptionally good at my job. Victoria turned fully to face him now, and Ethan saw the careful mask sliding back into place, the vulnerability retreating, the CEO returning. Which is why this conversation never happened. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. Now go back to whatever analysis you were working on and forget you saw me. Forget this entire— Why do you do that? Ethan interrupted. Victoria's eyes flashed dangerously. Excuse me? You were being real, actually real, and then you slammed the door shut the second it felt too genuine. Ethan knew he was crossing about 17 different lines, but something in him refused to back down. You don't have to do that. Not with me. I don't have to do anything, Mr. Cole. Least of all, take emotional advice from an analyst who works for me. You're right. Ethan moved toward the door, then stopped. But for what it's worth, the people down there? He gestured at the window. They're not happier than you because they have some secret you don't. They're just brave enough to let people see them. All of them, even the broken parts. He left before she could respond. Walking back to his desk, Ethan's hands were shaking. He'd just committed career suicide. By Monday, he'd probably be packing his desk. By Tuesday, his name would be a cautionary tale whispered in elevators. Remember that analyst who got himself fired for being honest with Victoria Hale? But somehow he didn't regret it. The weekend passed in its usual blur. Chloe had a birthday party to attend on Saturday, some classmate Ethan had never met, which meant buying a present, wrapping it terribly, and making awkward small talk with other parents who all seemed to have their lives more together than he did. Sunday was laundry, groceries, meal prep for the week, and 3 hours at the playground because Chloe had been cooped up inside too long and her energy was reaching dangerous levels. By Sunday night, Ethan was exhausted in that deep, bone-tired way that had become his default state. He tucked Chloe into bed, read her the dragon story twice because she gave him those big pleading eyes, and finally collapsed on the couch with a beer he was too tired to actually drink. His phone buzzed. An email. From Victoria Hale. Ethan's stomach dropped. Here it was. The termination notice, the formal reprimand. Maybe just a single line. Clean out your desk by noon Monday. He opened it. Subject. Office hours. Mr. Cole, report to my office. Monday at 8 a.m. Bring your current project files and performance reviews from the past year. V. Hale Short. Cold, completely professional, and absolutely terrifying. Ethan read it 3 times, searching for hidden meaning. Nothing, just the facts, which somehow made it worse. He barely slept Sunday night. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of Chicago weather that matched his mood perfectly. Ethan dropped Chloe at school, returned home to change into his best suit, and arrived at the office by 7:30. Too early, but he couldn't stand waiting any longer. The executive floor was quiet. Victoria's assistant hadn't arrived yet. The massive oak door to her corner office was closed, but light showed underneath. She was already there. Of course she was. At exactly 8 o'clock, Ethan knocked. Come in. Victoria's voice was perfectly neutral. Her office was ridiculous. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 walls, modern furniture that probably cost more than Ethan's car, and enough awards and commendations to fill a small museum. Victoria sat behind a desk the size of a boat, looking every inch the billionaire CEO in a charcoal suit that probably cost 5 figures. The woman who'd been crying in the break room might as well have been a hallucination. Sit. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Ethan sat, files clutched in his sweating hands. Victoria studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she opened a folder on her desk. His employee file, Ethan realized with growing dread. Ethan James Cole, 32 years old. B.A. in economics from University of Illinois. Started at Coleman and Briggs 5 years ago as a junior analyst. Promoted to senior analyst 6 months ago. Consistently strong performance reviews. Reputation for being thorough, reliable, and, she looked up, unusually honest. I can explain. No need. Victoria closed the folder. I'm not firing you, Mr. Cole. The relief was so intense, Ethan nearly laughed. You're not? I'm promoting you. Silence. Ethan was certain he'd misheard. I'm sorry, what? Executive Vice President of Strategic Analysis, reporting directly to me. Salary of $250,000 plus full benefits package, stock options, and flexible scheduling. Victoria slid a contract across the desk. I need someone who can look at complex financial situations and tell me the truth instead of what I want to hear. Based on our conversation Thursday night, you seem uniquely qualified. Ethan stared at the contract like it might explode. The numbers were absurd. Life-changing. $250,000 would mean a real house for Chloe, not just an apartment. Savings, security, the kind of stability he'd been desperately chasing since Sarah left. Why? The question escaped before he could stop it. Why what? Why are you doing this? Thursday night I basically told you to be more vulnerable. That's not exactly grounds for promotion. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. No, it's grounds for termination, which is what 90% of people in this building expected me to do. She leaned back in her chair. But I didn't build $1 billion company by surrounding myself with yes men, Mr. Cole. I built it by finding people who were smart enough to challenge me and brave enough to actually do it. Still seems like a risk. Everything is a risk. Victoria's fingers drummed once against the desk. But I've spent 3 years watching you work. You're talented, dedicated, and despite your obvious exhaustion, you haven't let your personal situation impact your performance. That's rare and valuable. The flexible scheduling, you have a daughter. I'm aware childcare is complicated. If you're working for me directly, you need to be effective, not burned out. She pushed the contract closer. This is a business decision, Mr. Cole. Don't overthink it. But Ethan was overthinking it, because business decisions didn't usually come with concerned observations about burnout. Business decisions didn't usually happen 3 days after finding your CEO crying alone in a break room. You don't owe me anything, he said quietly. Whatever happened Thursday night never happened, Victoria finished smoothly. We've established that. This promotion is based entirely on merit and business necessity. Any other interpretation would be inappropriate. Their eyes met, and Ethan saw the warning there. Don't push. Don't make this something it isn't. So he didn't. He signed the contract. Excellent. Victoria stood, extending her hand across the desk. Welcome to the executive team, Mr. Cole. Your first project briefing is tomorrow at 9. Don't be late. Her handshake was firm, professional, completely impersonal. But when Ethan left her office, he could have sworn he saw the ghost of a smile on her face. The promotion changed everything. Within 2 weeks, Ethan had moved into a proper house in Lincoln Park. Nothing extravagant, but a real home with a backyard and enough space for Chloe to have her own room plus a playroom. His mother cried when she saw it. Chloe ran through every room shrieking with joy, declaring each space the best room ever, until she'd proclaimed at least 6 different rooms the best. Work changed too. Reporting directly to Victoria meant projects with actual impact, not just endless spreadsheet analysis. She was demanding, precise, and absolutely brutal when his work didn't meet her standards. But she was also fair, and occasionally, in brief moments between meetings, almost human. Your analysis on the Kendrick merger is flawed, Victoria said one afternoon, dropping his report on his new desk. Massive, modern, and somehow even more intimidating than his old cubicle. Ethan looked up from his laptop. What's wrong with it? Section 3 assumes market stability over 18 months. That assumption is optimistic, bordering on delusional. She crossed her arms. Redo it with realistic volatility projections. I need it by tomorrow. Tomorrow? That's impossible? Victoria raised one perfect eyebrow. Should I have given this project to someone more capable? Ethan bit back about 17 different responses. No, I'll have it done. Good. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Your daughter's school play is Wednesday at 2, correct? Ethan froze. How did you... You mentioned it during last week's briefing when I suggested Wednesday afternoon for the client presentation. Block your calendar from 1 to 4. The presentation can wait. She left before he could respond. Ethan stared at the empty doorway. Victoria Hale, who allegedly had never shown human emotion in her entire career, had just rescheduled a major presentation so he could watch Chloe play a talking tree in the second-grade production of The Enchanted Forest. The woman was an enigma wrapped in designer suits and impossible contradictions. But over the following weeks, Ethan started noticing things, small things. The way Victoria's shoulders relaxed marginally when he walked into her office. How she actually asked about his weekends instead of just diving into business. The fact that she'd started keeping the good coffee, the expensive French roast, in her office and always offered him a cup during their morning meetings. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing that crossed professional lines. But something was shifting. It happened during a late-night strategy session 6 weeks after his promotion. They'd been working on a potential acquisition deal, running numbers until Ethan's vision blurred. Around 9 p.m., Victoria stood abruptly and walked to her window. The same view of Grant Park. "You're still watching them," Ethan said before he could stop himself. Victoria didn't turn around. "Old habits. Are they still happy down there?" "Annoyingly so." She pressed her palm against the glass. "There's a couple, older, maybe in their 60s, who walk their dog past the fountain every evening around 8:15. Without fail. Rain, snow, whatever. They hold hands the entire time." "Sounds nice." "It's nauseating," Victoria said, but her voice was soft. "Also, yes, nice. Definitely nice." Ethan saved his work and moved to stand beside her. Below, the city glittered. Monday night crowds streamed through the park. The older couple was probably already home, probably sitting in comfortable silence, reading or watching television, or doing whatever people who'd been together forever did with their evenings. "Do you still think you don't get that?" Ethan asked. "Get what?" "The happy ending." Victoria was quiet for so long Ethan thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "I think I'm terrified of wanting it. Want things you can't have long enough, and eventually you stop wanting anything at all. Safer that way." "Safer isn't the same as better." "No." She finally looked at him, and Ethan saw that same raw vulnerability from the break room. Less hidden now, like she was slowly learning she didn't have to hide it from him. "But I've built my entire life on safe, calculated decisions. Wanting something I can't control?" She shook her head. "That's not who I am." "Maybe it could be." "Why do you care, Mr. Cole?" The question wasn't hostile, just genuinely curious. "Why does it matter to you whether I'm happy?" Ethan considered lying, saying something professional about workplace morale or team dynamics. But they were past that now, standing in an empty office at 9 p.m. talking about feelings instead of financial projections. "Because I've been where you are," he said honestly. "After Sarah left, I convinced myself being alone was easier. No risk, no disappointment, just me and Chloe and our routines. Safe." He met her eyes. "But it wasn't better. It was just less. Less everything." "And you changed that?" "I'm trying to." Ethan smiled slightly. "Still figuring out what that looks like, but I know it doesn't look like hiding." Victoria studied him with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't, like she was trying to solve a complex equation and he was the variable that didn't fit her usual formulas. "I should finish these projections," she said finally, stepping away from the window. "Right. Yeah." Ethan returned to his laptop, feeling like something significant had just happened, but unable to name exactly what. They worked in silence for another hour, but it felt different now, charged with possibility. At 10:30, Ethan packed up to leave. "Same time tomorrow?" "Actually," Victoria stopped typing, not looking at him. "Would you want to get coffee sometime?" Ethan's hand froze on his briefcase. "Coffee?" "It's a beverage, made from beans, often consumed in the morning." Victoria's tone was light, but Ethan could hear the nervousness underneath. "There's a place near Millennium Park that's supposedly excellent. We could discuss the Kendrick projections, or..." She finally looked up. "Not discuss work at all." "Ms. Hale, Victoria," she corrected quietly. "If we're having coffee, you should probably call me Victoria." Ethan's mind raced. This was crossing a line. Not technically, nothing about coffee was inherently inappropriate, but the intention behind it was crystal clear. He should say no. Politely decline. Keep things professional. I'd like that, Ethan heard himself say instead. Victoria smiled. Actually, smiled. Not the polite professional smile she gave board members or the cold, satisfied smile when a deal closed. A real smile that transformed her entire face from severe perfection into something softer, younger, almost uncertain. Saturday? She suggested. 10 a.m.? I have Chloe until 2. Bring her. Victoria caught his surprised expression and added quickly, if that's weird, we can… No, that would be nice, actually. Ethan surprised himself with how much he meant it. She'd probably enjoy it. Fair warning, though. She asks about 1,000,000 questions and has very strong opinions about whether chocolate chip or blueberry muffins are superior. I'll prepare my arguments. Victoria's smile widened fraction. It's a date. I mean, she caught herself, an appointment. A casual, non-work-related appointment involving coffee and possibly muffin-based philosophical debates. Sounds perfect. That night, after Chloe was asleep, Ethan sat on his back porch and tried to process what had just happened. Victoria Hale, brilliant, terrifying, untouchable Victoria Hale, had just asked him on what was absolutely, definitely a date, regardless of how much they both pretended otherwise. This was insane. She was his boss, his billionaire CEO boss. This could explode spectacularly and destroy everything he'd built. But when he closed his eyes, all Ethan saw was her real smile. The one that said maybe, just maybe, they were both tired of being lonely. Saturday morning arrived bright and unreasonably cheerful. Chloe bounced around the house in her favorite purple dress, the one with pockets because dresses without pockets are useless, Daddy, asking approximately 800 questions about who they were meeting and why and what kind of coffee place and could she get hot chocolate instead and did they have those cookies with the sprinkles? Her name is Victoria, Ethan explained while wrestling Chloe's hair into something resembling pigtails. She works with Daddy. We're just going to have coffee and talk. Is she nice? I think so, yeah. Is she pretty? Ethan paused mid-ponytail. Why does that matter? It doesn't. Chloe grinned at him in the mirror. But she is, isn't she? You're too smart for 7 years old. Grammy says I got all your brains and none of your shyness. Grammy talks too much. They arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early because Ethan had underestimated traffic. Victoria wasn't there yet, which gave him time to panic quietly while Chloe examined every pastry in the display case with scientific precision. That one, she declared, pointing to an enormous chocolate croissant, and hot chocolate, with extra whipped cream, and those rainbow sprinkles if they have them. We're supposed to wait. Ethan? He turned. Victoria stood in the doorway wearing jeans. Actual jeans. And a simple sweater that probably still cost more than his suit, but looked somehow softer, more approachable. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders instead of pulled back in her usual severe style. She looked completely different. Less CEO, more, human. Hi, Ethan managed. You found it. GPS is a miraculous invention. Victoria's eyes dropped to Chloe, and Ethan watched something shift in her expression. Nervousness, maybe. Or fear. You must be Chloe. Chloe examined Victoria with the brutal honesty only children possessed. You're really pretty. Thank you. Victoria crouched down to Chloe's level. Actually crouched, designer jeans and all. You're very pretty too. I love your dress. It has pockets. Chloe demonstrated by shoving both hands in and pulling out a small plastic dinosaur. See, I can carry important stuff. Every dress should have pockets, Victoria agreed seriously. It's a tragic design flaw that they don't. Chloe's face lit up. That's what I always say. Daddy, she's smart. I've noticed. They ordered hot chocolate for Chloe, cappuccino for Victoria, plain coffee for Ethan because he was boring, and found a table by the window. Chloe immediately launched into a detailed explanation of her week, covering everything from the injustice of multiplication homework to the drama of who got to be line leader at recess. Victoria listened like Chloe was presenting a billion-dollar merger proposal, asked follow-up questions, laughed at the right moments. Watching them, Ethan felt something in his chest crack open, something that had been locked tight for 3 years. Daddy says you work together, Chloe said between bites of croissant. We do, Victoria confirmed. Your father is very good at his job. He works a lot. Sometimes I wish he worked less. Chloe said it matter-of-factly, without accusation, but Ethan still felt the guilt knife through him. That's fair, Victoria said quietly. Work is important, but so are the people we love. It's hard to balance sometimes. Do you have kids? No? Do you have a husband? Chloe, Ethan started. It's okay. Victoria smiled, though it looked slightly pained. No husband? No kids? Just work, mostly. That sounds lonely. Out of the mouths of children. Ethan wanted to disappear under the table, but Victoria didn't look offended. She looked sad. Sometimes it is lonely. You're very perceptive. Grammy says I notice things other people miss. Chloe swung her legs under the chair. I notice you look at my daddy a lot. The silence was deafening. Victoria Hale's actual cheeks, turned faintly pink. Ethan had never seen her blush, hadn't thought it was possible. I do, Victoria said finally, meeting Chloe's eyes. Is that okay with you? Chloe considered this with 7-year-old seriousness. Do you make him happy? I hope so. I'd like to try. Okay then. Chloe returned to her croissant, crisis apparently resolved in her mind. Ethan's heart was attempting to break out of his chest. This was happening. This was actually happening. Victoria Hale had just admitted to his daughter that she wanted to make him happy. The rest of the morning passed in a warm blur. They talked about everything and nothing. Victoria told stories about traveling the world for business, making them entertaining instead of boastful. Chloe showed Victoria the proper technique for making whipped cream mustaches. Ethan watched two of the most important people in his life connect like they'd known each other forever. Walking back to his car afterward, Chloe skipped ahead while Victoria and Ethan walked in comfortable silence. She's wonderful, Victoria said finally. You're doing an amazing job. Most days I'm barely surviving. That's what good parents do. Survive one day at a time and hope they're not completely destroying their children. Victoria stopped walking. Thank you for bringing her. I know this whole thing is complicated. Yeah. Ethan met her eyes. But complicated doesn't always mean wrong. No, Victoria agreed softly. Sometimes it just means scary. They stood there in the middle of a Chicago sidewalk, the city bustling around them, both knowing they were stepping into something neither could control. Same time next week? Ethan asked. Victoria smiled that real smile again. I'd like that. Watching her walk away, Ethan realized he was already counting the days. The second Saturday coffee became a third, then a fourth. By the 6th week, they'd stopped pretending these meetings were anything other than what they were. Two people who'd been lonely too long, cautiously testing whether they could be less lonely together. Victoria showed up at Ethan's house one Sunday afternoon with a ridiculous board game she'd found at some boutique shop in River North. It's called Dragon's Quest, she explained, holding the box like she wasn't entirely sure what to do with it. The woman at the store said 7-year-olds love it. Chloe's eyes went wide. Can we play? Please, Daddy? Please? They spent 3 hours on the living room floor, Victoria in her expensive jeans sitting cross-legged on the carpet, arguing with Chloe about proper dragon-slaying strategy. Ethan watched them together and felt something dangerous blooming in his chest. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of something that looked terrifyingly like family. You're terrible at this game, Chloe informed Victoria cheerfully after winning her 3rd consecutive round. I'm excellent at this game. You're just unnaturally gifted. Victoria studied her cards with exaggerated seriousness. I demand a rematch. You're going to lose again. Probably, but I'm very competitive, so I'll keep trying until I win or we all die of old age. Chloe giggled and played her next card. Ethan caught Victoria's eye across the board and saw her smile. The real one she saved for moments when she forgot to be the CEO. Later, after Chloe was in bed, they sat on the back porch with cheap beer because Ethan didn't keep wine in the house, and Victoria claimed not to care. Thank you for today, Ethan said. You didn't have to spend your Sunday getting destroyed at board games. I wanted to. Victoria picked at the label on her bottle. Is that weird? That I wanted to spend my day off sitting on your floor playing children's games? If it's weird, then we're both weird. Fair point. She was quiet for a moment, watching fireflies drift across the small backyard. I haven't done this in a long time, any of this. The casual hanging out, the getting to know someone without networking goals, the just being. How long? College, maybe, before everything became about building the company. Victoria laughed without humor. I went from driven student to startup founder to CEO, and somewhere in there I forgot how to be a regular person. You're doing fine now. Am I? She turned to look at him, and Ethan saw the uncertainty there. Because I feel like I'm constantly about to mess this up. Say the wrong thing, be too intense, scare you off with my complete lack of normal human social skills. You're not going to scare me off. You say that now. Victoria. Ethan waited until she met his eyes. I've seen you fire people. I've watched you eviscerate board members who came unprepared to meetings. I've heard you make a grown man cry over a spreadsheet error. He smiled. If I was going to be scared off, it would have happened already. Those are my professional skills, completely different from my personal disaster areas. What disaster areas? Victoria waved vaguely at herself. All of them? I don't know how to do this. The dating thing, the relationship thing. I've had exactly 2 boyfriends in my entire life. One in college who dumped me because I worked too much, and one at 25 who proposed after 3 months, then left when I said I needed more time because my company was going through a critical growth phase. He proposed after 3 months? He was impulsive, also possibly trying to access my money. In retrospect. She took a long drink. The point is, I'm terrible at this. I don't know the rules, I overthink everything, and I'm genuinely shocked you're still here. Maybe I like that you overthink things. Ethan shifted closer, their shoulders almost touching. Maybe I'm tired of people who don't think at all. That's a low bar. It's my bar. He turned to face her fully. Look, I don't know what I'm doing either. I haven't dated since my wife left. I have a 7-year-old who comes first, always, no matter what. I work too much, I'm exhausted 90% of the time, and my idea of a wild Saturday night is falling asleep on the couch by 9:30. Sounds perfect. Really? Ethan. Victoria set down her beer and looked at him with something raw and honest in her eyes. You could tell me your hobby is competitive lint collecting and I'd still want to be here. That's how pathetic I've gotten. Not pathetic, human. Same thing sometimes. They sat in comfortable silence while the summer night settled around them. Somewhere down the block, someone was grilling. A dog barked twice, then went quiet. Normal neighborhood sounds that probably didn't even register for Victoria in her luxury high-rise apartment overlooking the lake. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Of course. Why me? And don't say it's because I called you out in the break room, because there has to be more to it than that. Victoria considered the question seriously. You want the honest answer, or the answer that makes me sound less desperate? Honest. You looked at me like I was a person. She said it simply, but Ethan heard the weight behind the words. Not a CEO, not a target for networking, not a potential investor or business contact, just a person who is having a bad night. Do you know how rare that is? I'm guessing pretty rare. Try non-existent. Victoria pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. Everyone wants something from me, always. Even my own mother calls mainly to suggest charities I should donate to. But you? She shook her head. You saw me crying, and your first instinct was to check if I was okay, not to leverage it, not to screenshot it for social media, just basic human kindness. That's a depressing statement about your life. Tell me about it. She rested her chin on her knees. And then you kept being kind. Even when I promoted you, which, yes, was partly because you're talented, but also because I wanted reasons to talk to you that didn't involve me being pathetically obvious. You never treated it like you'd won something. You just worked hard and showed up and kept being genuinely decent. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He'd never thought of basic decency as particularly remarkable. Plus, Victoria added, her mouth quirking into a small smile, you have excellent taste in terrible beer. This beer costs $6 for a 6-pack. I know. It's objectively horrible. But sitting here drinking it with you is the best time I've had in years. She turned to look at him. Is that crazy? Probably. Ethan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. Her fingers were cold despite the warm night. But I think we're both a little crazy. Victoria laced their fingers together, staring at their joined hands like she was trying to memorize the sight. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Of what? Of wanting this too much. Of building something real with you and Chloe and then losing it. Of screwing it up because I don't know how to be in a relationship without treating it like a business deal I need to optimize. She laughed shakily. Of 1,000 things I can't control. Victoria, and I know that's not romantic. I know I'm supposed to just enjoy this and not overthink, and definitely not info dump all my anxieties on you during what should be a nice moment. Ethan kissed her. It wasn't planned, wasn't strategic. He just leaned in and pressed his lips to hers, cutting off the spiral of overthinking before it could consume her completely. Victoria froze for half a second, then kissed him back. Soft and uncertain at first, then deeper, her free hand coming up to cup his face like she was afraid he might disappear. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "Sorry," Ethan said. "You were spiraling." "I was." Victoria touched her lips, looking dazed. "That's your solution to my anxiety spirals? Kiss me?" "Did it work?" "Completely." She laughed, and this time it sounded lighter. "We should probably establish that as standard protocol." Noted for future reference. They kissed again, slower this time. Less desperate, more exploratory. Learning the shape of each other in the darkness of Ethan's tiny backyard, while the fireflies danced and the world kept spinning without them. At work, they maintained strict professionalism. Victoria was still demanding, still brilliant, still terrifying in meetings. Ethan still worked his ass off to meet her impossible standards. To anyone watching, nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Now Ethan caught Victoria's small smile when he brought her coffee during their morning briefings. Now she found reasons to brush past him in the hallway, just close enough that their hands almost touched. Now their late-night work sessions included stolen moments of conversation that had nothing to do with quarterly projections. "We should be more careful," Victoria murmured one evening after everyone else had left. They were supposed to be reviewing merger documents, but somehow they'd ended up standing close enough that Ethan could count the silver flecks in her gray eyes. "Probably. People will talk. They already talk. You're Victoria Hale. People always talk." She smiled. "Fair. But they'll talk more if they find out the CEO is dating her VP. "Is that what we're doing? Dating? I don't know. What would you call it?" Ethan pretended to consider. "Regularly scheduled interpersonal connection sessions with moderate romantic overtones?" Victoria laughed, the sound echoing in the empty office. "You're ridiculous. You like that I'm ridiculous." "I really do." She sobered slightly. "But seriously, Ethan, we need to be smart about this. The board would lose their minds, HR would have a collective aneurysm, and the media—" She shuddered. "I can already see the headlines. Billionaire CEO seduces employee. Power dynamics. Scandal. Is that what this is? Seduction? I don't know. I've never seduced anyone before. Is it working?" "Completely." Ethan reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "But you're right. We should be careful. For now." "For now," Victoria echoed. "Meaning eventually we stop hiding?" "Meaning eventually we figure out how to do this in a way that doesn't destroy both our careers." He traced his thumb along her jawline. "Because I'm not giving this up, Victoria. I'm not giving you up." "Ethan, I mean it. Whatever we have to figure out, we'll figure out. But I'm not walking away because it's complicated." Victoria closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "You say that now. Wait until you see how truly terrible I am at relationships." "Can't be worse than me." Challenge accepted. She opened her eyes, and Ethan saw fear there, but also determination. "Okay, we'll figure it out. Together. Together." They managed to keep things quiet for almost 2 months. 2 months of secret coffee dates and stolen kisses in empty conference rooms and text messages that made Ethan smile at his phone like a teenager. 2 months of Victoria showing up at his house on weekends, gradually becoming part of the routine he'd built with Chloe. 2 months of feeling like maybe, possibly, against all odds, this could actually work. Then Marcus Chen from accounting saw them. It was a Friday night. Ethan had stayed late to finish a presentation. Victoria had stayed late because she always stayed late. They'd grabbed dinner from the Thai place down the street and eaten it in her office, talking about everything except work for once. Walking back to the car, Victoria had grabbed his hand without thinking. Just reached out and laced their fingers together like it was the most natural thing in the world. Marcus Chen, leaving the gym across the street, saw everything. By Monday morning, half the office knew. By Monday afternoon, everyone knew. Ethan first noticed it in the break room. The way conversation stopped when he entered, the sidelong glances, the whispers that cut off too abruptly to be innocent. "Let them talk," Victoria said during their emergency lunch meeting in her office. She looked calm, but Ethan noticed she'd shredded her napkin into confetti. "It's none of their business. The board will make it their business. The board works for me." Victoria shh. "I know." She stood, pacing to her window, the same window where this whole thing had started. "I know it's more complicated than that, but I'm not going to apologize for this. For us. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to think strategically." Ethan moved to stand beside her. "What's the end game here?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, where does this go? We keep dating in secret until someone leaks it to the press? We go public and deal with the fallout? I quit and find another job? You need to have thought this through." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "You're right. I should have thought this through, planned it better, had a strategy." She turned to face him. "But the truth is, I didn't plan any of this. I just kept falling for you and hoping we'd figure it out somehow." The admission hung between them. "Falling for me," Ethan repeated. "Is that okay?" Victoria's vulnerability was showing again, cracking through the CEO facade. "Is it okay that I'm completely in love with you and terrified about what that means?" Ethan's heart stopped, restarted, tried to climb out of his chest. "Say that again." "Which part?" "The love part." Victoria's cheeks colored. "I'm in love with you. Have been for weeks, probably. Maybe longer. I don't know when it happened exactly, but somewhere between board games and cheap beer and watching you be an amazing father, I fell completely, stupidly in love with you." Ethan kissed her. Right there in her office, in full view of anyone who might walk past the glass walls. Kissed her like they weren't hiding anymore, like he didn't care who saw. When they broke apart, Victoria was breathless. "That's not a strategic response." "I'm in love with you too," Ethan said. "Also stupidly, also terrified. But I meant what I said before. I'm not giving this up." "Even if it gets messy?" "Especially if it gets messy." He took her hands. "We'll deal with the board. We'll deal with HR. We'll deal with whatever comes. But we deal with it together." Victoria nodded, and Ethan saw tears threatening in her eyes. "Together." "Okay. Yes." She took a shaky breath. "I need to call an emergency board meeting. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Full transparency. Let them come after me if they want, but they leave you out of it." "Victoria, no arguments. You work for me, which means I protect you. That's not negotiable." Her voice was pure CEO now, steel wrapped in silk. "I'll present it as a personal relationship that doesn't impact business operations. They can complain all they want, but unless they want to try forcing me out, which they won't because I own controlling shares, they'll accept it. You've thought about this." "I've thought about nothing else for 2 months." She squeezed his hands. "I just needed to be brave enough to actually do it." The board meeting happened 3 days later. Ethan wasn't allowed to attend, but Victoria filled him in afterward. "Richardson threatened to resign," she said, collapsing onto Ethan's couch that evening. "Chloe was at a sleepover, giving them rare, uninterrupted time. Patterson suggested we needed independent counsel to review the situation. Jenkins just sat there looking constipated and horrified. But I reminded them that my personal life is exactly that, personal. And unless they could demonstrate concrete harm to company operations, they could keep their opinions to themselves." Victoria smiled grimly. "Then I reminded them about the morality clause in Richardson's contract and his extremely married weekend trip to Cabo with his assistant last year." "You didn't." "I absolutely did. Richardson withdrew his resignation. The others fell in line. We're implementing a disclosure policy for all executive relationships, which is actually good practice anyway. And that's that." Ethan sat down beside her. "So we're official, like actually official?" "As official as it gets." Victoria leaned into him, exhausted but relieved. "I'm sure there will be fallout, media attention, probably some employees who think you slept your way to the top, definitely some speculation about power dynamics and inappropriate workplace relationships." "Sounds fun." "It's going to be a nightmare," Victoria said honestly. "But it's a nightmare I'm choosing. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing something messy and complicated and uncertain because it makes me happy." She looked up at him. "You make me happy, Ethan, You and Chloe, this whole weird situation we've built, it's worth fighting for. Yeah, Ethan agreed. It really is. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Victoria's head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. A car drove past, playing music too loud. Normal evening sounds in a normal neighborhood. Chloe asked me something yesterday, Ethan said eventually. What? If you were going to be her new mom. Victoria tensed. What did you tell her? I told her nobody could replace her real mom, but that you were someone very special to both of us. Ethan paused. She seemed satisfied with that answer. Good. That's good. Victoria was quiet for a moment. For what it's worth, I would never try to replace Sarah. But I would love to be part of Chloe's life, part of both your lives, if you'll let me. Victoria. Ethan waited until she looked at him. You already are part of our lives. Have been for a while now. Yeah. She smiled, soft and genuine. I guess I am. Later that night, after Victoria had gone home and the house was quiet, Ethan stood in Chloe's doorway watching her sleep. She looked peaceful, her stuffed dragon clutched in one arm, completely unaware that her father's life had just gotten infinitely more complicated, but also infinitely better. His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. Thank you for today, for everything, for being brave when I was scared. I love you. Ethan smiled and typed back. I love you too. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow. And the day after that. And hopefully all the days after that, messy and complicated and absolutely worth it. The media found out on a Wednesday. Ethan was making breakfast when his phone started buzzing non-stop. Text messages, emails, 3 missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize. He was stirring scrambled eggs with one hand and trying to braid Chloe's hair with the other when his mother called. Ethan, honey, there's a picture of you on the internet. What? He nearly dropped the spatula. What picture? You and some woman. It says she's a billionaire? The article is asking if you're, what did they call it? A gold digger. That's ridiculous, of course, but I thought you should know before. I have to call you back, Mom. He pulled up his browser. The first 3 results were all variations of the same headline. Billionaire CEO, Victoria Hale. Dating employee, power imbalance or real romance. There was a photo from last weekend at the farmer's market. Him, Victoria, and Chloe looking at produce, completely unaware someone was photographing them. Daddy, the eggs are burning. Shit, shoot. Sorry, baby. Ethan rescued breakfast while his phone continued its relentless assault. Unknown numbers. More emails. A text from his coworker Jennifer that just said, OMG, call me. Then Victoria's name flashed on the screen. I saw, Ethan said instead of hello. I'm so sorry. Victoria sounded exhausted, and it was barely 7:30 in the morning. My PR team is working on a statement. We'll get ahead of this. They photographed Chloe. I know. I've already had my lawyers send cease and desist letters to every outlet that published her image. Most of them are taking it down. A pause. Are you okay? Ethan looked at his daughter, who was now watching him with wide, worried eyes. Can I call you back? Of course. I love you. Love you too. He hung up and crouched down to Chloe's level. Hey, kiddo, remember how we talked about Daddy's friend Victoria? The pretty lady who's bad at Dragon's Quest? Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Yeah, her. Well, some people are really interested in the fact that she and Daddy are dating. They took some pictures of us without asking. You might hear people talking about it at school. Chloe frowned. Why do they care? Because Victoria is very successful, and some people think that's interesting. That's dumb. A little bit, yeah. Ethan smoothed her hair back. If anyone asks you about it, you don't have to answer. Just tell them it's private family stuff, okay? Okay. She paused. Is Victoria in trouble? No, baby. Nobody's in trouble. People are just nosy. Grammy says being nosy is rude. Grammy is very wise. School drop-off was a nightmare. Other parents stared, some whispered. Mrs. Patterson from the PTA actually stopped him at the door. Ethan, I saw the news. That woman is worth billions, and I'm sure it's all very exciting for you. The implication was clear. Gold digger, social climber. Man who'd landed himself a meal ticket. Have a great day, Mrs. Patterson. Ethan kept his voice pleasant and his middle finger metaphorically raised as he walked away. Work was worse. The elevator ride up to his floor felt like running a gauntlet. Everyone knew. Everyone was looking. Todd from marketing actually had the audacity to fist bump him and whisper, "Nice work, man. Serious upgrade." Ethan wanted to punch him. His office, the nice office that Victoria had given him because he was good at his job, not because they were sleeping together, felt like a fishbowl. People kept walking past, slowing down, trying to catch a glimpse of the man who was dating the CEO. At 9, Victoria's assistant called. "Ms. Hale would like to see you in her office." The walk across the executive floor had never felt longer. Employees didn't even try to hide their staring now. Ethan heard someone whisper, "There he goes," and wanted to scream that he'd earned his position, that he'd worked his ass off for 5 years, that he was more than just Victoria's boyfriend. But he kept walking. Victoria's office door was closed. He knocked. "Come in." She was standing at her window again. That damn window, looking out at the city. She'd clearly been there a while. Her coffee was cold on the desk. Her jacket was draped over her chair instead of on her shoulders. She looked smaller somehow, despite her perfect posture. "Close the door," she said quietly. Ethan did. "I've been fielding calls since 5 this morning," Victoria continued, still not turning around. 3 board members, 7 major investors, the head of PR, my mother, who I haven't spoken to in 6 months, but who apparently reads financial gossip columns." She laughed without humor. "Everyone has opinions about my personal life." Victoria, Richardson is calling for another emergency meeting. He's citing reputational concerns and fiduciary responsibility, which is code for, "I don't like that you're happy." She finally turned around, and Ethan saw the exhaustion in her face. Patterson suggested we issue a statement saying this is a brief personal matter that won't affect business operations. Make it sound temporary, forgettable. What did you tell him? I told him to go to hell, but in more professional language. Victoria moved to her desk, bracing her hands against it. I'm not ashamed of this, Ethan. I'm not ashamed of you, but I also didn't anticipate how vicious people would be. About me being a gold digger? Her head snapped up. You've seen those articles. Hard to miss them. They're very creative. Failed husband trades up. Single dad strikes gold. My personal favorite is Victoria Hale's charity case. Ethan kept his voice level, but anger simmered underneath. Really painted a picture of me as a desperate loser who manipulated his way into your bed. None of that is true. I know that, you know that. But they don't care about truth. They care about clicks and drama and whatever narrative sells. He ran a hand through his hair. I got congratulated by 3 different guys this morning. Congratulated. Like I'd won some kind of prize by getting you to date me. Victoria flinched. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. It is, though, my visibility, my money, my decision to go public with this before we had better protective measures in place. She moved around the desk toward him. I was naive. I thought if we were honest and straightforward, people would respect that. I forgot that people are awful. Not all people. Enough people. Victoria stopped a few feet away, maintaining professional distance even though they were alone. Ethan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Is this worth it? Her voice cracked slightly. All of this. The media circus, the speculation, the way people are treating you. Is being with me worth what it's costing you? Ethan stared at her. Are you serious right now? Completely serious. Because if this is too much, if the price is too high, I'll understand. We can issue a statement saying we've mutually decided to end things. You keep your position, I'll make sure everyone knows you earned it independently, and we both move on with minimal damage. You've thought about this. I've thought about nothing else since the story broke. Victoria's arms wrapped around herself in that defensive posture Ethan had come to recognize. I dragged you into this. I made your life complicated. I exposed your daughter to media scrutiny, and I hate that I did that to you. Victoria. So if you want out, if you need out, I'll make it as painless as possible. I promise. Ethan closed the distance between them and took her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. Stop. Ethan, I said stop. Stop catastrophizing. Stop trying to make decisions for me. Stop assuming I'm going to run. See, the second things get difficult. He searched her face. Is that what you think? That I'm that easy to scare off? I think you're smart enough to recognize a bad situation. Yeah, I am, and this isn't one. Ethan stroked his thumb across her cheekbone. Yes, the media is being disgusting. Yes, people are saying vile things. Yes, this whole situation is messier than either of us wanted. But you know what else is true? What? I love you. Chloe loves you. You make us both happier than we've been in years. And I'm not throwing that away because some journalists need to fill column space with garbage. He leaned his forehead against hers. So no, I don't want out. I want to figure out how we survive this together. Victoria's breath shuddered out. You're sure? Completely sure. Even though people think you're using me? Even though their opinions don't change reality. Ethan pulled back slightly. But I'm going to need you to trust that I can handle this. Stop trying to protect me by pushing me away. That's my default setting. I know, we're working on it. He kissed her forehead. We're working on all of it. Someone knocked on the door. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Ms. Hale? Her assistant's voice filtered through. Mr. Richardson is here for your 9:30. Victoria and Ethan exchanged glances. Richardson, the board member who'd been most vocal about their relationship. Send him in, Victoria called. She straightened her shoulders, and Ethan watched the CEO mask slide back into place. And Ethan, we'll continue this discussion later. It was a dismissal, professional, appropriate. But when Richardson walked in and saw them both there, his expression soured immediately. Cole, I didn't realize you'd be present for this meeting. He's not, Victoria said smoothly. He was just leaving. Thank you for the quarterly analysis, Mr. Cole. Very thorough work. Ethan played along. Of course, Miss Hale. I'll have the revised projections on your desk by end of day. He left, feeling Richardson's judgmental eyes following him the entire way. The next few weeks were brutal. Every day brought fresh articles. Think pieces about power dynamics in the workplace. Op-eds questioning Victoria's judgment. Speculation about Ethan's motivations ranging from mildly offensive to completely deranged. Someone dug up Sarah's Facebook and tracked her down for comment. She declined, thankfully, but the mere fact that they'd tried made Ethan's blood boil. Chloe started having nightmares. Nothing dramatic, just bad dreams, where people were taking pictures and she couldn't make them stop. Ethan held her at 2 a.m. while she cried and hated every single person who'd made his daughter afraid. Maybe we should take a break, he told Victoria one night. They were at his house, their refuge from the outside world, and he'd just gotten Chloe back to sleep for the 3rd time that week. Victoria looked up from her laptop. A break from what? This. Us. Publicly. Anyway. Ethan sat heavily on the couch. Not actually breaking up, just lying low for a while. Let things calm down. That won't help. It'll just make them think they were right, that we were inappropriate all along and now we're running scared. I don't care what they think. I care about Chloe having nightmares. Victoria closed her laptop. I know, I hate that too. But hiding won't fix it, Ethan. The story is already out there. Going underground just extends the news cycle. So what do? We live our lives. Victoria moved to sit beside him. We keep working, keep being together. Keep showing Chloe that sometimes people are mean, but that doesn't mean we let them win. Easy for you to say. You're used to public scrutiny. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Victoria took his hand. Do you think I enjoy reading articles about how I'm a predatory boss? Or seeing people speculate that I'm too old for genuine affection and must be buying yours? Or watching them dissect every interaction we've ever had looking for evidence of impropriety? Ethan squeezed her hand. I'm sorry. You're right. This sucks for both of us. Monumentally sucks, Victoria agreed. But we're doing it together. That has to count for something. They sat in tired silence for a while. Outside, a car alarm went off. Someone's dog barked in response. Normal neighborhood chaos that had nothing to do with billionaires or media circuses. Chloe asked me something today, Ethan said eventually. What? If you were going to leave because people were being mean. He felt Victoria tense beside him. I told her no, that you were tougher than that. Was I right? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what my father told me when I was starting my company? What? He said people would always find reasons to doubt me. Too young, too female, too ambitious, not ambitious enough, too cold, too emotional. She stared at their joined hands. He said I could either waste energy trying to prove them wrong, or I could just succeed so loudly they couldn't ignore it. Smart man. He died before seeing the company really take off. Heart attack at 52. Victoria's voice went soft. But I think about that advice constantly. When the board questions me, when investors doubt my decisions, when articles call me an ice queen or speculate about why I'm still single at 30. You're not single anymore. No. And now they're speculating about why I'm with you. She turned to look at him. But here's the thing. I don't care. Not about their opinions, not about their theories. I care about you, about Chloe, about building something real with both of you. Even if it's hard? Especially if it's hard. The things worth having usually are. Victoria smiled slightly. So yes, you were right. I'm not leaving. Not because of mean articles or judgy board members or anything else. I'm staying. You're stuck with me. Good. They kissed, soft and slow, and for a few minutes the outside world stopped mattering. Later, after Victoria had gone home, she still maintained her own apartment, claiming they needed to take some things slow even as everything else moved fast. Ethan checked on Chloe again. She was sleeping peacefully now, dragon clutched tight, looking exactly like the kid she was supposed to be. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure this out. Ethan smiled and typed back. I know. I love you. I love you too. Even when you're being stubborn about taking breaks. Especially then. Go to sleep, Ethan. Yes, ma'am. He fell asleep on the couch, phone still in hand, and dreamed of quieter days ahead. The turning point came from an unexpected source. Ethan was grocery shopping on a Saturday morning. Chloe was having a play date. Victoria was handling some crisis at work. When he ran into Jennifer Chen from the office. Ethan, hey! She waved from the produce section. Hey, Jen? He grabbed some apples, trying to calculate if 3 pounds would last the week. Listen, I know things have been crazy lately. The whole media situation. Jennifer lowered her voice, even though the nearest person was 2 aisles away. I just wanted to say, I think it's bullshit. What they're writing about you. Ethan looked up, surprised. Thanks? No, I'm serious. I've worked with you for 3 years. You earned that promotion fair and square. Hell, you probably deserved it before Victoria even noticed you existed romantically. She grabbed a bag of grapes. And the whole gold digger thing? Please. You drive a 10-year-old Honda and pack the same sad turkey sandwich for lunch every day. If you were after money, you're doing a terrible job. Despite himself, Ethan laughed. The sandwiches aren't that sad. They're desperately sad. You need better bread. Jennifer grinned, then sobered slightly. But really, a bunch of us have been talking. We know the real story. You're good at your job. Victoria is good at hers. You fell for each other. End of story. A bunch of you? Like 15 people, maybe 20. We're thinking about putting together some kind of statement. Not official or anything, just colleagues vouching for your integrity. Would that help or make things worse? Ethan felt something tight in his chest loosen. You'd do that? Of course. You're one of the good ones, Ethan. We're not letting the internet turn you into a villain. She paused. Plus, Victoria kind of terrifies us all. And if we didn't stand up for you, she might make our lives hell. So really, it's self-preservation. I'll take it. Smart man. That afternoon, something interesting happened on social media. A post from @jchen_Coleman, Jennifer's professional account, appeared with a thread. I've worked with Ethan Cole for 3 years. Thread on why the media narrative about him is garbage. She laid out his work history, his performance reviews, testimonials from other analysts about his integrity and skill. By the time she reached tweet 15, 3 other colleagues had added their own threads. By Sunday morning, #IStandWithEthan was trending. Ethan woke up to hundreds of notifications, strangers defending him, people sharing their own stories of workplace relationships, think pieces reconsidering the power dynamic narrative. It wasn't all positive. Plenty of people still thought he was a gold digger. But for the first time, there was balance. Victoria called him at 8. Have you seen Twitter? Just woke up to it. Your coworkers went to bat for you. That's She sounded choked up. That's really something, Ethan. Yeah. He scrolled through the responses, feeling overwhelmed. Jennifer started it, said she couldn't let people trash me without fighting back. Remind me to give her a raise. Pretty sure that would just fuel the narrative that I have special influence over company decisions. Fair point. I'll give everyone raises. Equality. Victoria laughed. How are you feeling? Weird. Good weird, I think. It's nice having people who know the real situation speak up. Ethan paused. How are you? Relieved. The PR team is having a field day with the positive coverage. Richardson called this morning to grudgingly admit that maybe the situation isn't as dire as he thought. She sounded lighter than she had in weeks. We might actually survive this. We will survive this. When did you become the optimistic one? When I realized I have you, Chloe, and apparently 15 to 20 work colleagues willing to defend my honor on the internet. That's a pretty good support system. It really is. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I love you, you know. I know. I love you too. Even with all the chaos I brought into your life? Especially with all the chaos. Ethan smiled at his phone. You make the chaos worth it. After they hung up, Ethan went to check on Chloe. She was already awake, playing with her stuffed animals in a patch of sunlight on her bedroom floor. Morning, baby girl. Morning, Daddy. She looked up. Are people still being mean? Some people, but some people are being really nice now, standing up for us. Good. Chloe returned to her game, where a dragon and a princess were apparently negotiating a trade agreement. Grammy says mean people get tired eventually. They run out of mean and move on to something else. Grammy is very wise. She says you should marry Victoria. Ethan nearly tripped over his own feet. She said what? She said Victoria makes you smile again, and that's important. And that she'd be a good grandma to me, even though she's not my real grandma, because family is about love, not blood. Chloe said it all matter-of-factly, like she was reporting the weather. Do you want to marry her? That's a big question, kiddo. It's a yes or no question. Technically yes, but it's also complicated. Chloe sighed dramatically. Adults always say things are complicated. Is it because of the mean people? A little bit. That's dumb. If you love someone and they love you and they're nice to me, you should marry them. That's what all the princess stories say. Life isn't a princess story, baby. It could be if you weren't so scared. She looked at him with those two wise 7-year-old eyes. You are scared, right? That's why you haven't asked her? Ethan sat down on the floor next to his daughter. Yeah, I'm scared. Of what? Of it not working out. Of things changing. Of you getting hurt if Victoria and I don't make it long term. He pulled Chloe into his lap. I love her very much, but I love you more. You come first. Always. I know that, Daddy. Chloe hugged him. But I love her too. She teaches me about business and plays games with me and doesn't treat me like I'm stupid just because I'm little. And she makes you happy. That makes me happy. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't listen enough. Chloe squirmed out of his lap and returned to her toys. You should ask her to marry you before someone else does. I don't think anyone else is asking Victoria to marry them. You never know. She's very pretty and very rich. Someone might try. Chloe crashed her dragon into a building of blocks. Just think about it, okay? Okay, baby, I'll think about it. And he did think about it. Through the rest of the weekend. Through the following week of steadily improving media coverage. Through a board meeting where Richardson grudgingly acknowledged that the relationship drama had actually increased public interest in the company in positive ways. He thought about it while watching Victoria help Chloe with math homework, explaining fractions using pizza slices and making his daughter laugh when she got frustrated. He thought about it during their late-night conversations about everything and nothing. He thought about it when she showed up at his house at midnight because she'd had a nightmare and wanted to make sure they were real. By the end of the month, Ethan knew what he wanted. The question was whether Victoria wanted the same thing. The question of what Victoria wanted became unavoidable on a rainy Thursday in October. They were at her apartment for once, a stunning high-rise overlooking Lake Michigan that felt more like a hotel suite than a home. Chloe was at a sleepover, giving them a rare evening alone. Victoria had ordered Thai food, and they'd eaten it sitting on her pristine white couch, carefully avoiding spills like teenagers afraid of getting caught. I hate this place. Victoria said suddenly, looking around her living room. Ethan followed her gaze. Everything was perfect. Minimalist furniture, expensive art, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view that probably cost more per month than most people's mortgages. It looked like a magazine spread. "It's beautiful," he said carefully. "It's sterile." Victoria set down her takeout container. "I bought it 5 years ago because my real estate agent said it was a good investment. The decorator did everything. I just signed off on the invoices. I don't think I've ever actually chosen anything in here." The books on that shelf look personal. Those are the only things that are mine. Everything else is just expensive, nothing. She stood, walking to the window. "You know what's funny? Your house, which is probably a tenth the size of this place and definitely not worth millions, feels more like home than anywhere I've ever lived." Ethan joined her at the window. The city sprawled below them, lights glittering in the rain. "What makes it feel like home?" Chloe's drawings on the fridge. Your terrible couch that's probably older than our relationship. The way it smells like coffee in the morning, and whatever you're cooking for dinner. Victoria pressed her palm against the glass. The mess, the life, the evidence that people actually exist there instead of just passing through. "You could make this place feel like that. Could I?" She turned to look at him. "I don't know how, Ethan. I've spent so long building this image, successful, controlled, untouchable, that I forgot how to just be a person who has a home. So change it. You're Victoria Hale. You can do anything you want." "That's not true. There are a lot of things I can't do." She looked back out at the city. "I can't make the board stop questioning every decision I make now. I can't make the media stop writing about us. I can't make myself believe that I deserve this happiness we've found." "Victoria." "I'm serious." Her voice cracked slightly. "Some days I wake up and wait for the other shoe to drop. Wait for you to realize you could do better. Wait for Chloe to decide she doesn't want me around. Wait for everything to fall apart, because that's what always happens when I let myself want something." Ethan turned her to face him, hands gentle on her shoulders. "What always happens? You've had 2 relationships your entire adult life. That's not a pattern. That's just bad luck and worse timing. Or it's evidence that I'm fundamentally not built for this. For the domestic bliss and the family dinners and the whole thing." She gestured vaguely. "Maybe I'm too damaged, too focused on work. Too much like my father, who died alone in his office at 52 because he couldn't stop working long enough to take care of himself." "You're not your father. How do you know?" The question came out sharp, defensive. "You didn't know him. You don't know what I'm capable of becoming. I know you spent 3 hours last week helping Chloe build a volcano for her science project. I know you rearranged a board meeting so you could come to her school play. I know you keep a photo of the 3 of us on your desk at work, even though that's probably not great for your professional image." Ethan cupped her face. "You're not turning into your father, Victoria. You're turning into someone who's learning to balance work with the people she loves. What if I can't maintain that balance? What if I slip back into old patterns? Then we talk about it. We adjust. We figure it out together." He searched her eyes. "But you don't get to use fear of failure as an excuse to not try." Victoria laughed wetly. "When did you become so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just didn't notice because you were too busy being terrified." He kissed her forehead. "I love you. Chloe loves you. We're not going anywhere. Can you try to believe that?" "I'm trying." She leaned into him and Ethan wrapped his arms around her. "It's just hard. Trusting that this is real, that it'll last." "I know. But we've made it this far, haven't we? Through media circuses and board meetings and your tendency to catastrophize at 2 in the morning. I only catastrophize at 2 a.m. because that's when my brain decides to review every mistake I've ever made." Sounds exhausting. "It really is." Victoria pulled back slightly. "Stay tonight? I know you have to get Chloe in the morning, but just stay?" "Of course." They migrated to her bedroom, as sterile and perfect as the rest of the apartment, and fell asleep tangled together. Ethan woke once around 3 to find Victoria watching him in the darkness. "Can't sleep?" he murmured. "Just memorizing this, in case it disappears." "It won't. Promise?" "Promise." He pulled her closer. "Go to sleep, Victoria." "Bossy." "You like that I'm bossy." "Maybe." She settled against his chest. "Ethan?" "Hmm?" Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I'm difficult. You're not difficult, you're just scared. There's a difference. If you say so. Her breathing evened out, and within minutes she was asleep. Ethan lay awake a while longer, thinking about Chloe's words, about marriage, about building something permanent with someone who was terrified of permanence. He'd have to be careful, strategic. Make sure Victoria knew this was about love, not obligation, about choosing each other, not trapping each other. But first, he needed to have a conversation with his daughter. The next morning, after picking up Chloe from her sleepover, Ethan took her out for pancakes at their favorite diner. "We need to talk about something important," he said once they'd ordered. Chloe looked up from her coloring sheet. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby. Nothing like that." Ethan took a breath. "How would you feel if Victoria became a permanent part of our family? Like, officially?" "You mean marriage?" "Yeah, marriage." Chloe considered this seriously, orange crayon poised over a pumpkin. "Would she move into our house?" "Probably, or we might get a bigger house together. One with enough room for everyone." "Would I have to call her Mom?" "Only if you wanted to. You could call her Victoria, or Vicky, or something else entirely. That would be up to you." "Would we still have daddy-daughter time?" "Always. That never changes, no matter what." Ethan reached across the table and took her small hand. "You're my priority, Chloe. Forever. Nothing and no one changes that. But I think Victoria could make our family bigger, better, if that's something you'd want." Chloe was quiet for a long moment, coloring her pumpkin with intense concentration. Then, "Does she want to marry you?" "I don't know yet. I haven't asked her." "Why not?" "Because I wanted to make sure you were okay with it first. This affects you too. Your opinion matters. Grammy says kids don't get a vote in adult decisions." "Grammy is usually right, but this is different. I'm not marrying someone unless you're comfortable with them being part of our family." Ethan squeezed her hand. "So what do you think?" Chloe set down her crayon and looked at him with those eyes that were somehow both innocent and ancient. "I think Victoria is lonely like you used to be lonely. And I think we make her less lonely. And I think that's a good thing to do for people you love." "That's very wise, baby girl." "I know." She picked up her crayon again. "You should ask her, but do it nice, with flowers or something. Girls like flowers." "Where did you learn that?" "Grammy. She knows everything about romance." "Of course she does." Their pancakes arrived, and the conversation shifted to school drama and upcoming Halloween costume decisions. But Ethan's mind was already working on a plan. The problem was, Victoria Hale wasn't exactly easy to surprise. She noticed everything, anticipated problems before they happened, and had probably already run multiple scenarios for how their relationship might progress. A traditional proposal felt too predictable. It needed to be personal, meaningful. Something that acknowledged who they were and how they'd gotten here. Ethan spent the next 2 weeks planning. He enlisted his mother's help with Chloe logistics. Jennifer Chen helped him pick out a ring. Nothing huge or ostentatious, just a simple band with 3 small diamonds that somehow felt right, and he called in a favor with building security to access the office after hours. On a Saturday night in early November, Ethan told Victoria he needed to grab something from the office. At 8 p.m. on a Saturday? Victoria looked up from her laptop. They were at his house, Chloe asleep upstairs, both of them supposedly working. "I left my notes for Monday's presentation. Won't take long." Ethan stood, grabbing his keys. "Come with me? The city looks nice at night." Victoria studied him suspiciously. "You're being weird." "I'm always weird." "Weirder than usual." But she closed her laptop and grabbed her coat. "Fine, but if this is some elaborate prank, I'm firing you." "You can't fire me. I'm your boyfriend." "Watch me." The drive downtown was quiet. Victoria kept glancing at him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Ethan kept his expression neutral, hands steady on the wheel, even though his heart was trying to break out of his chest. The Coleman and Briggs building was mostly empty. A few lights on upper floors where other workaholics were putting in weekend hours, but otherwise dark and silent. Ethan used his key card to access the executive floor. Victoria followed, her heels clicking on marble floors. "Your notes better be very important," she said. "They are. Promise." He led her past his office, past the conference rooms, all the way to her corner office at the end of the hall. "Ethan, what?" He opened the door. Victoria's office had been transformed. Fairy lights were strung along the windows, the same windows where she'd once stood watching happy people in the park, convinced she'd never have that for herself. On her desk sat a single photo in a simple frame. The three of them at the farmer's market, the picture that had started the media circus. Chloe was mid-laugh, Victoria was smiling down at her, and Ethan was looking at Victoria like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "What is this?" Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "This is where it started," Ethan said quietly. "Where I found you crying. Where we had our first honest conversation. Where you told me people like you don't get happy endings." He moved to stand beside the window, looking down at Grant Park spread out below them. "Remember the couple you used to watch? The older ones with the dog? They're probably down there right now, 8:15, like clockwork." "They are. I checked earlier." Ethan turned to face her. "You told me once that you watched them because you wanted what they had. That easy comfort, that certainty." "I remember. I can't promise easy, Victoria. We've already proven that nothing about us is easy." He pulled the small velvet box from his pocket, and Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. "But I can promise certain. I can promise that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whenever, we'll still be taking walks together, still holding hands, still choosing each other every single day." "Ethan," her voice broke. "Let me finish." He opened the box. The ring was simple, elegant, exactly right. "I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm not asking you to stop working hard or to fundamentally change who you are. I'm asking you to build a life with me and Chloe. A messy, complicated, beautiful life where we figure things out together." Tears were streaming down Victoria's face now. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." Ethan took her hand. "Victoria Hale, will you marry me? Will you let us be your family? Will you stop watching happiness from a distance and actually live it with us?" For a long, terrifying moment, Victoria just stared at him. Her face was a mess of tears and shock and something that looked like fear. Then she laughed, actually laughed, bright and surprised and completely unguarded. "Yes, yes, you ridiculous man, of course, yes." Ethan slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands. It fit perfectly. Victoria stared at it like she couldn't quite believe it was real. "I had a whole speech prepared," Ethan admitted, "about how you make me want to be braver, how Chloe lights up when you walk in the room, how I never thought I'd feel this way again after Sarah left. Save it for the wedding." Victoria pulled him into a kiss that tasted like tears and laughter and relief. I love you so much it terrifies me." "I know, I love you too." They stood there in her office, wrapped around each other, the city glittering below them. Victoria kept looking at her ring, then at Ethan, then back at the ring like she couldn't quite process what had happened. "Chloe knows," Ethan said eventually. "I asked her permission first. She said I should do it nice, with flowers. I forgot the flowers." "I don't need flowers." Victoria laughed again, wiping her eyes. "I can't believe you asked my permission from a 7-year-old before asking me." "She's an important stakeholder in this decision. She's going to be impossible now. You know that, right? She already bosses me around during Dragon's Quest. This is just going to make her worse." "Probably. I don't care." Victoria kissed him again. "I don't care about any of it. The board can complain. The media can speculate. Richardson can have a stroke for all I care. I'm marrying you." "We should probably issue a press release." "Absolutely not. Let them find out like everyone else." She grinned. "Actually, no. Let's call your mother first. And then let them find out like everyone else." They sat on her office floor, expensive suit and all, calling Ethan's mother on speakerphone. "It's about time," was the first thing she said when they told her the news. "I was starting to think you'd never get around to it." "You knew?" Ethan demanded. "Of course I knew. Chloe can't keep a secret to save her life. She's been practicing saying, 'my stepmom Victoria,' in the mirror for 2 weeks. Victoria dissolved into laughter. "I love that kid so much." "She loves you too, dear. Now, when's the wedding? I need time to plan." "We literally just got engaged 10 minutes ago." "And? Planning takes time. I'm thinking spring. Maybe May. Nothing too elaborate. Victoria's probably tired of elaborate." "I hate elaborate," Victoria confirmed. "See? May. Outdoor ceremony if weather permits. I'll start looking at venues." Ethan's mother sounded delighted. "Oh, this is wonderful. I'm so happy for you both. After they hung up, Ethan and Victoria sat in comfortable silence. The fairy lights cast soft shadows across the office. Through the window, they could just barely make out the walking paths of Grant Park. Do you think they're down there? Victoria asked. The couple with the dog? Probably finishing their walkabout now. I hope they're happy. I hope they have no idea that watching them used to break my heart every single night. She leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. I hope they're just living their lives, completely unaware that they gave me hope when I didn't think I had any left. You want to go down there? Say thank you? That would be insane. A little bit. Victoria considered it. Let's do it anyway. They took the elevator down, walked out into the November night, and headed toward Grant Park. The older couple was exactly where Victoria said they'd be, walking a small terrier past the fountain. Excuse me, Victoria called out. The couple stopped. The woman smiled politely. Yes? This is going to sound crazy, Victoria started, then laughed. Actually, it is crazy, but I used to work in that building. She pointed up at Coleman and Briggs. And I used to watch you walk your dog every night. And seeing you together, seeing how happy you looked, it gave me hope that maybe I could have that too someday. The woman's expression softened. Oh, honey, I just wanted to say thank you. You have no idea how much it meant, watching you two. Victoria squeezed Ethan's hand. We just got engaged. And it's because of a lot of things, but partly it's because you showed me what was possible. The man smiled, his arm around his wife's shoulders. That's lovely. Congratulations. How long have you been married? Ethan asked. 38 years, the woman said. Best 38 years of my life. Even the hard parts. Any advice? Victoria asked. The couple looked at each other, communicating in that silent way longtime partners do. Then the woman spoke. Don't keep score. Don't go to bed angry. And remember that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every single day. She smiled at Victoria. Also, get a dog. Dogs help. We'll consider it, Ethan said, laughing. They said their goodbyes and walked back toward the car. Victoria kept looking at her ring, then at Ethan, then back at the ring. I can't believe we just did that, she said. Which part? The engagement or the thanking random strangers for existing? Both, all of it. This whole night is surreal. She stopped walking and pulled Ethan into a kiss. But it's the best kind of surreal. Yeah? Definitely. Victoria smiled against his mouth. Take me home. Your place or mine? Yours. Always yours. That's where our family is. They drove back to Lincoln Park, where Chloe was supposedly sleeping, but definitely wasn't based on the bedroom light visible from the street. Ethan's mother opened the door before they could get their keys out. Well? She looked at Victoria's hand and squealed. Oh, it's beautiful. Chloe, they're home. Chloe came thundering down the stairs in her pajamas, took one look at Victoria's ring, and launched herself at both of them. You said yes. I knew you'd say yes. Can I be a flower girl? Can we get a dog? Are we moving to a bigger house? Yes, maybe, and probably, Victoria answered, scooping Chloe up despite the fact that she was getting too big for scooping. In that order. This is the best day ever, Chloe declared. Ethan's mother hugged them both. I'm so happy for you. You deserve this. All of you. They spent the next hour discussing wedding possibilities, while Chloe drew elaborate plans for her flower girl dress. Victoria sat on the couch, looking slightly overwhelmed but happy, her hand finding Ethan's every few minutes like she needed to confirm he was real. Around midnight, Ethan's mother finally took Chloe up to bed. For real this time, young lady, it's a school night, leaving Ethan and Victoria alone. Your family is wonderful, Victoria said quietly. Our family, Ethan corrected. You're part of it now. Officially. Our family. She tested the words. That sounds nice. It sounds perfect. He pulled her close. Any regrets? About saying yes to marrying you? None. Victoria paused. About doing it in my office, surrounded by fairy lights while crying like a teenager? Maybe a few. I'm going to look like a mess in the retelling. You looked beautiful. I looked like a disaster. A beautiful disaster. Ethan kissed her temple. My beautiful disaster. Smooth talker. You love it. I really do. Victoria settled against him, playing with her ring. Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I was convinced I didn't deserve this. didn't deserve you. You deserve everything good, Victoria. I wish you could see that. I'm starting to. She looked up at him. It's easier when I'm with you, believing I can be happy, that I'm allowed to want things that aren't work-related. Good. Keep practicing. We've got the rest of our lives for you to get comfortable with the idea. The rest of our lives, Victoria echoed. That's a long time. Not long enough. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to his mother reading bedtime stories upstairs, the old house settling around them. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet except for the occasional car passing by. This was home, Ethan thought. Not the building or the furniture or any of it. Just this. Victoria in his arms, Chloe safe upstairs, his mother humming while she tidied the kitchen. People who loved each other choosing to be together. Hey, Victoria. I'm really glad you were crying in that break room. She laughed. That's a weird thing to be glad about. You know what I mean. I do. Victoria turned to kiss him properly. I'm glad too. Glad you didn't walk away. Glad you saw me. Glad you kept seeing me even when I tried to hide. Always, Ethan promised. I'll always see you. And he meant it. The engagement announcement hit the news cycle exactly as expected, with the subtlety of a freight train. By Monday morning, every major outlet had picked up the story. Some were congratulatory, others were cynical, a few were downright vicious, reviving the old gold digger narrative with renewed enthusiasm. Billionaire CEO, Victoria Hale to wed employee. Love story or corporate scandal, read one headline. From break room to boardroom to bedroom, the Ethan Cole success story, read another, complete with a timeline of his promotions that made it look suspiciously calculated. Ethan read them over coffee, while Chloe ate cereal and chattered about how she wanted her flower girl dress to have at least 17 layers of tulle, maybe 20. You okay? His mother asked quietly, refilling his mug. Yeah, just tired of people acting like Victoria and I are some kind of scandal instead of two people who fell in love. He set his phone down. It's exhausting. Then stop reading it. I can't. What if they write something that affects Chloe or Victoria's business? I need to know what's out there. What you need, his mother said firmly, is to focus on your family and let the gossips gossip themselves out. They'll move on eventually. They always do. She was right, of course, but that didn't make the waiting any easier. At work, the atmosphere had shifted again. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by something more complicated. Some colleagues were genuinely happy for them. Others were clearly resentful. A few seemed to be keeping score, watching to see if Victoria showed him favoritism now that they were engaged. Jennifer Chen stuck her head into his office around 10. Conference room B, now. What's happening? Emergency meeting. Richardson called it. Victoria's pissed. Ethan's stomach dropped. About what? The engagement, probably. Come on. The conference room was already full when they arrived. Victoria sat at the head of the table, her expression carved from ice. Richardson stood at the other end, looking self-righteous. The other board members were scattered between them, ranging from uncomfortable to interested. Ah, Mr. Cole, Richardson said as Ethan entered. Perfect timing. We were just discussing your upcoming nuptials. Were you? Ethan kept his voice neutral. Indeed. Specifically, the optics of a CEO marrying her direct report. The potential for conflicts of interest. The message it sends to other employees about advancement opportunities. Richardson smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Surely you understand our concerns. What I understand, Victoria said coldly, is that we've already had this conversation. Multiple times. And each time I've made it clear that my personal life is not subject to board approval. Your personal life affects company reputation, shareholder confidence, employee morale. Richardson leaned forward. We're simply suggesting that perhaps Mr. Cole should seek employment elsewhere. Remove the appearance of impropriety. The room went silent. Ethan felt like he'd been punched. They wanted him gone, wanted to eliminate the problem by eliminating him. Absolutely not, Victoria said, her voice sharp enough to cut. Ethan has earned every position he's held at this company through merit and hard work. Suggesting otherwise is insulting to both of us. No one is questioning his competence, Patterson interjected. We're questioning the wisdom of maintaining this reporting structure post-marriage. Then change the reporting structure, Victoria shot back. Ethan can report to Jenkins or Patterson instead of me. Problem solved. That's not, Richardson started. Or, Victoria interrupted, standing slowly, we can address the real issue here, which is that you're uncomfortable with the fact that I'm happy, that I found someone who sees me as a person instead of a balance sheet, and you're trying to destroy that because it doesn't fit your image of what a CEO should be. Ms. Hale, I'm not finished. Victoria's hands were flat on the table, her whole body radiating controlled fury. I have built this company from nothing. I have delivered consistent growth, strong returns, and industry-leading innovation. My personal life has never interfered with my professional responsibilities. And the fact that you're even having this conversation says more about your prejudices than my judgment. Richardson's face was turning red. This is highly inappropriate. You want to talk about inappropriate? Let's discuss your expense reports from last quarter, or Patterson's decision to hire his nephew for a position he wasn't qualified for, or Jenkins' country club memberships that were somehow writing off as business development. Victoria's smile was sharp. Everyone in this room has made decisions that blur personal and professional lines. The only difference is that mine happens to involve my heart instead of my wallet. That's enough, Jenkins said quietly. Victoria, we understand you're emotional about this. I'm not emotional, I'm correct. There's a difference. She straightened. Here's what's going to happen. Ethan will continue in his current role until we restructure reporting lines, which we'll do within the month. HR will draft policies around executive relationships that apply equally to everyone, board members included, and we will never have this conversation again. Are we clear? The board members exchanged glances. Richardson looked like he wanted to argue, but Patterson put a hand on his arm. We'll draft the policies, Patterson said. But Victoria, you need to understand, this situation is unprecedented. We're in uncharted territory here. Then let's chart it together instead of trying to sink the ship. Victoria gathered her papers. This meeting is over. She walked out without looking back. Ethan followed, feeling every eye in the room tracking his movement. They didn't speak until they reached Victoria's office. She closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a long breath. I'm sorry, she said. For what? You were incredible in there. For putting you through this. Richardson is never going to let this go. He's going to make your life miserable every chance he gets. Victoria moved to her window, staring out at the city. Maybe he's right. Maybe it would be easier if you worked somewhere else. Don't, Ethan said sharply. Don't let him win by suggesting exactly what he wants. I'm not trying to let him win. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need you to stop making decisions for me. Ethan moved to stand beside her. If I wanted to leave, I'd leave. But I earned my place here, and I'm not letting Richardson's outdated views drive me out. Even if it makes everything harder? Even then. He took her hand. We're getting married, Victoria. That means we're a team. You don't get to make unilateral decisions about what's best for us anymore. We figure it out together. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Her fingers laced through his. You're right. I'm sorry. When he suggested you should leave, I panicked. Started thinking about all the ways I've complicated your life. You've also improved my life, dramatically, in pretty much every way. Ethan squeezed her hand. Yeah, some parts are harder now, but the good stuff outweighs the hard stuff by a mile. You sure about that? Completely. He kissed her temple. Now stop catastrophizing and help me figure out our actual strategy here. They spent the next hour mapping out a plan, restructuring reporting lines so Ethan reported to Jenkins instead of Victoria directly, establishing clear boundaries between their professional and personal relationships, drafting policies that would apply to all executives, not just them. By the time they finished, Victoria looked less like she was about to burn the building down and more like her usual composed self. Thank you, she said as Ethan gathered his notes. For what? For not letting me push you away. I have a bad habit of doing that when I'm scared. I've noticed. Ethan smiled. Lucky for you, I have a bad habit of not leaving when people try to push me away. Lucky for me, Victoria agreed. The restructuring was announced the following week. Ethan started reporting to Jenkins, who was fair-minded and professional about the whole thing. The new relationship policies were rolled out company-wide, applying to everyone from entry-level employees to board members. Richardson grumbled but couldn't find anything concrete to object to. Patterson seemed relieved to have clear guidelines. And slowly, the office gossip started dying down as people realized this wasn't the scandal they'd hoped for, just two people trying to do their jobs while also being in love. But the real challenge came from an unexpected direction. 3 weeks before the wedding, Sarah called. Ethan was making dinner when his phone rang with a number he hadn't seen in years but still recognized. His ex-wife, Chloe's mother, the woman who'd walked out and barely looked back. "Hello? Ethan, it's Sarah." His hands went still on the cutting board. "I know. What do you want?" "I saw the news. About your engagement." She paused. "To Victoria Hale, that's really something. Sarah, if you're calling to see, I want to see Chloe." The words hit him like ice water. "What?" "I want to see my daughter. It's been 3 years. I think it's time." Ethan set down the knife very carefully. "You haven't called, haven't sent a birthday card, haven't asked about her once in 3 years, and now, right before I'm getting married, you suddenly want to be involved? I know how it looks, but I've been working on myself, therapy, getting my life together, and I realized I can't keep running from my responsibilities." "Chloe isn't a responsibility. She's a person you abandoned." "I didn't abandon her. I left a situation that wasn't working." Sarah's voice took on that familiar defensive edge. "And now I'm ready to try again, to be part of her life." "No. Ethan, no. You don't get to waltz back in because it's convenient for you. Chloe has a life, a routine, a family, and we're about to add Victoria to that family. This is the worst possible timing. Or it's perfect timing. She's gaining a stepmother. Why not reconnect with her actual mother at the same time?" Ethan closed his eyes, fighting for patience. "Because you'll hurt her. You'll show up, make promises you won't keep, and disappear again when parenting gets hard. I'm not letting you do that to her. You can't keep me from my daughter. Watch me. You signed away custody. You have no legal rights here. I can get a lawyer. So can I. One who'll be very interested in your 3-year absence and sudden convenient reappearance right when there's a billionaire entering the picture." Silence. Then, "You think this is about money?" "I think the timing is suspicious as hell. I'm her mother, Ethan. I have rights. You were her mother. Now you're just the woman who left. There's a difference." Ethan's voice was hard. "Don't call again. And definitely don't show up. If you want to be part of Chloe's life, you go through the proper channels. You get a lawyer, I'll get a lawyer, and we'll let the court decide. But you don't get to disrupt her life on a whim." He hung up before she could respond. His hands were shaking. After 3 years of silence, Sarah chose now to resurface. Right before the wedding, it was too calculated to be coincidence. "Daddy?" Chloe appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Who was that?" Ethan plastered on a smile. "Nobody important, baby. Go wash up for dinner." But Chloe had inherited his tendency to notice things. "You look upset." "I'm fine. Just a work thing." The lie tasted bitter, but he couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. Not when he didn't know what Sarah was actually planning. That night, after Chloe was asleep, Ethan called Victoria. "Sarah called," he said without preamble. "Your ex-wife Sarah?" "The one and only. She wants to see Chloe. Says she's been in therapy, working on herself, ready to be a mother again." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "What did you say?" "I said no. Told her to get a lawyer if she wanted to pursue it legally." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "The timing is too convenient. 3 years of nothing, and then right before our wedding, she suddenly wants to be involved? You think it's about the money, don't you?" "Probably," Victoria admitted. "But Ethan, if she does get a lawyer, if she pushes this legally, you might not have a choice. Courts tend to favor parental rights, even when the parent has been absent." "I know." The thought made him sick. "But I can't let her hurt Chloe, not again." "We won't let her," Victoria said firmly. "We'll get the best family lawyer in Chicago. We'll document everything, and if it comes to it, we'll fight for Chloe together." "We." You keep saying we. Because that's what this is now, you and me and Chloe. Whatever happens, we face it together. She paused. "Does Chloe know?" "No. I couldn't. I didn't want to scare her before I knew what Sarah was actually planning. Smart. We'll wait. See if she follows through or if this was just a power play. Victoria's voice softened. Try not to worry too much. Sarah walked away from custody. That's not easy to reverse, especially with no contact for 3 years. I hope you're right. I'm always right. You know this. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Modest as ever. It's not modesty if it's true. He could hear her moving around, probably getting ready for bed. Are you okay? Really? I don't know. Angry, mostly, and scared. Sarah has this way of blowing up my life whenever things are going well. She doesn't get to blow up your life anymore. Our life. And I won't let her. Victoria's voice was steel wrapped in silk. If she wants a fight, she's going to get one. And trust me, I'm very good at fighting. I know you are. That's one of the things I love about you. Only one? Fine. One of many things. Ethan lay back on the couch. Thank you for not freaking out about this. Why would I freak out? Because it's drama, complications, the kind of mess that normal people run away from. Good thing I'm not normal people. Victoria laughed softly. Besides, you've dealt with my board members, media circuses, and general emotional disasters. The least I can do is help you handle one difficult ex-wife. When you put it that way, exactly. We're even. Now get some sleep. You sound exhausted. I am exhausted. I know. I love you anyway. I love you too. After they hung up, Ethan sat in the darkness for a while, thinking about family, about what it meant, about how the people who were supposed to love you could hurt you the worst, and how sometimes the family you chose mattered more than the family you were born into. Sarah didn't call back. But 2 days later, a lawyer's letter arrived. She was filing for partial custody, claiming she'd been dealing with postpartum depression that had gone untreated for years, that she'd finally gotten help, that she was ready to be the mother Chloe deserved. Ethan read the letter 3 times, rage building with each pass. She's lying, he told his lawyer, an efficient woman named Margaret Torres, who Victoria had recommended. Sarah was difficult from the day Chloe was born, but it wasn't postpartum depression. She just didn't want to be a parent. Can you prove that? Margaret asked. I have emails, text messages. Her own words saying motherhood wasn't for her, that she felt trapped, that she needed to find herself. Good. Save all of it. We'll need documentation of her absence too. Missed birthdays, holidays, any attempt you made to maintain contact that she ignored. Ethan thought about 3 years of birthday cards returned unopened, 3 years of silence. I've got plenty. Then we'll fight this. But Ethan, you need to prepare for the possibility that she might get some visitation rights. The courts generally prefer to keep both parents involved when possible. Even when one parent walked away for 3 years? Even then, family court is complicated. Margaret's expression was kind but firm, but we'll make it as minimal as possible. Supervised visits at most. She's going to have to prove she's stable and committed before any judge grants her significant time. How long will this take? Months, probably. Maybe longer. These things don't move quickly. Months. Months of uncertainty. Months of Chloe potentially finding out her mother wanted back into her life. Months of legal battles right when they should be focusing on the wedding and their new family. Okay, Ethan said, because what else could he say? Let's do it. That evening, he finally told Chloe. Victoria was there for moral support, sitting quietly on the couch while Ethan knelt in front of his daughter. Baby, I need to talk to you about something important. Chloe looked up from her coloring book. Is this about Mommy Sarah? Ethan's heart stopped. How did you? I heard you on the phone the other night. You said her name. Chloe's voice was matter of fact. Is she coming back? She wants to see you. She's asked a judge to let her have visits. Do I have to see her? The question was so small, so scared that Ethan wanted to punch something. I don't know yet, baby. We're talking to lawyers to figure it out. But whatever happens, Victoria and I will be right there with you. You won't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. Chloe was quiet for a moment, her crayon moving absently across the page. I don't really remember her. Not very much. I know. Will she want me to call her Mommy? I don't know what she'll want, but you get to decide what you're comfortable with. Nobody can make you call her anything you don't want to. Good, Chloe set down her crayon, because I don't think of her as my mommy. Mommies don't leave. The simple truth of it broke Ethan's heart. He pulled Chloe into a hug and she clung to him fiercely. You're not going to leave, right, Daddy? Even after you marry Victoria? Never. I'm never leaving you. That's a promise. And Victoria won't leave either? Victoria moved from the couch to kneel beside them. Not a chance, kiddo. You're stuck with both of us. Chloe seemed to consider this, her face pressed against Ethan's shoulder. Okay, then I think it'll be okay, even if I have to see Sarah sometimes, because you'll both be there. Always, Ethan promised. That night, after Chloe was asleep, Victoria and Ethan sat on the back porch under a blanket, watching the last of the fireflies disappear as winter approached. She's so brave, Victoria said quietly. Braver than I was at 7. Braver than I am now, honestly. She gets that from her Grammy. Definitely not from me. You're brave too, just in different ways. Victoria leaned into him. You chose to be vulnerable, to let me in, to build this family even though it scared you. That's the hardest kind of brave. You did the same thing. After you showed me how. She looked up at him. I was so convinced I couldn't have this. Normal life, family, love. And you just kept insisting I was wrong until I finally believed you. Stubborn is my best quality. One of many. Victoria smiled. We're going to be okay, with Sarah, with the wedding, with all of it. How do you know? Because we've survived everything else. Media circuses, board revolts, my emotional disasters, your ex-wife reappearing. We've handled all of it together. This is just one more thing. One more very complicated thing. True, but we're good at complicated. She kissed him softly. Actually, I think we might be better at complicated than we are at simple. That's probably not healthy. Probably not, but it's us. And it was. Complicated, messy, imperfect, but undeniably them. The wedding was planned for a Saturday in May, exactly as Ethan's mother had predicted. Small ceremony, close friends, and family only, at a garden venue in Oak Park that Chloe had fallen in love with because it had 1,000,000 flowers and also frogs in the pond. The legal situation with Sarah dragged on. Margaret filed their response, arguing that 3 years of abandonment demonstrated a pattern of instability that made her unsuitable for custody. Sarah's lawyer countered with medical records documenting depression treatment and therapy sessions. It was ugly, exhausting. But through it all, Ethan kept his focus on what mattered: Chloe, Victoria, and the life they were building together. 2 weeks before the wedding, the judge issued a preliminary ruling. Sarah would be granted supervised visitation, 2 hours every other Sunday, supervised by a court-appointed guardian. If she maintained consistent attendance and demonstrated stability over 6 months, they'd revisit the arrangement. It wasn't what Ethan wanted, but it could have been worse. The first visit was scheduled for the Sunday after the wedding. Convenient timing, Ethan thought bitterly, but at least it gave them the wedding week without that hanging over them. The day before the ceremony, Ethan's mother hosted a family dinner. His aunts and uncles came. Victoria's mother made a rare appearance, looking uncomfortable but trying. Chloe ran wild with her cousins, high on excitement and sugar. Victoria found Ethan in the kitchen, hiding from the chaos. You okay? She asked. Just needed a minute. He smiled. Tomorrow we get married. Tomorrow we get married, Victoria repeated, like she was testing the words. Are you having second thoughts? Not even a little bit. You? None. Which is weird, right? I should be freaking out. This is a huge commitment, a permanent decision. The kind of thing I usually spend months analyzing from every angle. But with you, it just feels right. She moved closer, wrapping her arms around his waist. Like the safest risk I've ever taken. A safe risk? That's very on-brand for you. I contain multitudes. Victoria grinned. Are you ready for this? Really ready? To marry you? Absolutely. To deal with our insane combined families at one event? Less ready. They mean well. Your mother told my aunt that our relationship was an interesting social experiment. My uncle asked if you were going to make me sign a prenup. Did you tell him I already did? You what? Victoria laughed. I'm kidding. I didn't make you sign anything, though my lawyers strongly suggested I should. And you said? I said, if we're doing this, we're doing it all the way. No hedging, no exit strategies, just us building a life together, for better or worse. Ethan kissed her deep and slow, not caring that anyone could walk in. I love you. I love you too. Even when your family is loud and mine is weird and we're hiding in the kitchen at our own rehearsal dinner. Especially then. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. Spring warmth without summer humidity, flowers blooming everywhere. The kind of day that felt designed for new beginnings. Ethan stood at the altar, his heart hammering, watching Chloe walk down the aisle, scattering rose petals with theatrical flair. She'd gotten her 17 layers of tulle, plus a flower crown that kept sliding sideways. Then Victoria appeared, and everything else disappeared. She'd chosen a simple dress. Elegant, classic, nothing over the top. But she looked absolutely radiant. Her mother walked beside her, and for once Victoria's carefully controlled mask was completely gone. She was just smiling, eyes locked on Ethan, looking happy in a way he'd never quite seen before. The ceremony was brief. They'd written their own vows, kept them honest and personal instead of flowery. I promise to see you, Ethan said, his voice steady despite his nerves. Really see you, not the CEO, not the billionaire, just Victoria, the woman who loves bad board games and cheap beer and sitting on back porches watching fireflies. I promise to build a life with you that's big enough for all of us. You, me, Chloe, and whoever else joins this messy, beautiful family. And I promise that no matter how complicated things get, we'll figure it out together. Victoria was crying, actually crying, mascara definitely running, not caring at all. I promise to let you see me, she said, to stop hiding behind walls and control and fear of being hurt. I promise to be present, to choose this, choose us, every single day. To be part of your family in all the ways that matter. She looked at Chloe, who was standing beside them as the world's most adorable maid of honor. To love your daughter like she's mine. To build a home that feels like home instead of just an investment. And to never, ever forget what a gift it is to be loved by you. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. They exchanged rings. Ethan's a simple platinum band, Victoria's the engagement ring plus a matching wedding band. The judge pronounced them married. They kissed while everyone cheered, and Chloe yelled, "Finally!" loud enough to make everyone laugh. The reception was exactly what they'd wanted. Casual, joyful, full of people who genuinely cared about them instead of people they felt obligated to invite. Ethan's mother cried through her entire speech. Victoria's mother gave a surprisingly warm toast about learning that success came in many forms. Chloe insisted on dancing with both of them at once, hanging between them while they swayed to music. Around sunset, Ethan found himself alone with Victoria for a moment, standing at the edge of the garden, watching the party continue without them. "We did it," he said. "We did." Victoria leaned into him, and Ethan wrapped his arm around her waist. "We're married. That's so weird to say. Good weird or bad weird? The best weird." She turned to look at him, the setting sun making her eyes seem lighter. "A year ago, I was standing in my office watching other people be happy, convinced I'd never have this. And now you're stuck with me and a 7-year-old and a mother-in-law who's already planning where we should take family vacations." I heard her mention Disney World. She's very enthusiastic about Disney World. "Then I guess we're going to Disney World," Victoria smiled. "See? I'm adapting, becoming flexible, a whole new me. I like the old you just fine." "Good. Because I'm still going to be demanding and intense and probably work too much. I know, I'm still going to be stubborn and overprotective and pack sad turkey sandwiches. We're a disaster. We're perfect," Ethan corrected. "Perfectly imperfect." They stood there watching the sunset paint the sky gold and pink, listening to laughter and music drift across the garden. Chloe was teaching Ethan's uncle the latest TikTok dance. Victoria's mother was actually smiling at something Jennifer Chen was saying. Their whole weird, complicated family mixed together in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. "Ethan," Victoria said quietly. "Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me, for seeing something worth fighting for when I couldn't see it myself. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. But it would have taken longer, been harder, been lonelier." She squeezed his hand. "I'm glad I didn't have to do it alone." "Me too." As the evening wore on and stars began appearing overhead, Ethan thought about everything that had led them here. The chance encounter in a break room, the awkward coffee dates, the media circus, the board battles. Sarah's reappearance, all the obstacles that could have broken them but instead made them stronger. He thought about Chloe, who was now wearing his jacket over her flower girl dress and had grass stains on her knees from playing, about how she'd stopped having nightmares about cameras, about how she called Victoria Vicky now, casual and comfortable, like she'd always been part of their lives. He thought about Victoria, who'd learned to laugh at herself, to be vulnerable, to build a home instead of just a showcase, who still worked too much but also made time for board games and back porch conversations and being present for the small moments. And he thought about himself. How a year ago he'd been surviving, not living. Convinced that being a good father meant sacrificing everything else, learning that maybe, just maybe, he could have both. Could be a dad and a partner and a whole person instead of fragments held together by responsibility. Later that night, after the party had wound down and they'd said goodbye to the last guests, Ethan and Victoria drove home with Chloe asleep in the back seat. Not to Victoria's sterile apartment she'd sold that months ago, but to their house, the one they'd found together, big enough for all of them, with a backyard for Chloe and an office for Victoria and enough space for the life they were building. Ethan carried Chloe inside while Victoria dealt with the bags. They got her into pajamas without fully waking her, tucked her into bed, and stood in the doorway for a moment watching her sleep. "Our daughter," Victoria whispered. Ethan looked at her. "Yeah? You said Chloe is our daughter, in your vows. Not my daughter who you're helping me raise. Our daughter. Because she is. Maybe not biologically, but in every way that matters." He pulled Victoria close. "Is that okay?" "It's more than okay." She was crying again, happy tears this time. "It's everything." They left Chloe's door cracked open and made their way to their own bedroom. The house was quiet except for the usual settling sounds, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. Normal sounds. Home sounds. Victoria stood at the bedroom window, looking out at their backyard, and Ethan was struck by how different this was from that first night in her office. She wasn't watching other people's happiness anymore. She was living her own. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "That couple. The one with the dog in Grant Park. What about them? I hope we end up like them. Still walking together when we're 70, still holding hands, still choosing each other every day." She turned to him. "That's what I want, Ethan. Not just the wedding or the romance or the exciting part. I want the boring middle, the routine, the thousands of ordinary days that add up to a lifetime." That's very specific for someone who used to think happy endings weren't real. "I'm learning," Victoria smiled. "You're a good teacher. So are you. You taught me it's okay to want more than just survival, that making space for happiness doesn't make me a bad father." "You were never a bad father, just a scared one." "Past tense?" "Mostly past tense. You're still scared sometimes. We both are. But we're scared together now, which makes it manageable." Ethan pulled her close, and they stood there in the darkness, wrapped around each other, listening to their house breathe. This was it, he thought. This was the happy ending Victoria hadn't believed in. Not perfect, not without challenges ahead. Sarah's visits would start next week. Work would always be demanding. Life would throw curveballs because that's what life did. But they'd face it together, him and Victoria and Chloe. Their weird, imperfect, beautiful family. "I love you," Ethan said into her hair. "I love you too." Victoria pulled back just enough to kiss him. "Thank you for teaching me I was allowed to." "Any time." They fell asleep tangled together, the windows open to let in spring air, the sound of the city distant but present. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Next week would bring Sarah. Next month would bring whatever crisis Victoria's board dreamed up. Next year would bring changes they couldn't predict. But tonight they were just Ethan and Victoria Cole, newly married, finally home. And that was more than enough. In the morning, Chloe woke them up by jumping on the bed, still in her flower girl dress because she'd refused to let them take it off completely, demanding pancakes and asking if being married meant they had to act different now. "Nope," Ethan said, catching her mid-bounce. "Same as always." "Good, because different would be weird." Chloe settled between them. "Can we get a dog now?" Victoria said maybe. "I said we'd discuss it," Victoria corrected, but she was smiling. "Discussing it means yes. That's what Daddy always says." "Your Grammy has been teaching you too much," Ethan said. "Grammy knows everything." Chloe bounced once more. So can we? Can we get a dog? Ethan and Victoria looked at each other over Chloe's head. A silent conversation passed between them, the kind that came from knowing someone, really knowing them. Yeah, Victoria said finally. Yeah, I think we can get a dog. Chloe's shriek of joy probably woke the entire neighborhood. Later, after pancakes and the ceremonial opening of wedding gifts and Chloe's very serious campaign for a big dog, not a little one, because little dogs don't count, Ethan found a moment alone with Victoria in the kitchen. You hate dogs, he said. I don't hate dogs. I've just never had one. Because you hate them. Because I was never home enough to take care of one. Victoria loaded dishes into the dishwasher. But things are different now. I'm different now. And if a dog makes Chloe happy, makes us feel more like a family, then we get a dog. You're sure? Ethan, I married you. I gained a 7-year-old daughter. I'm learning to cook meals that don't come from restaurants. I've already been photographed without makeup buying groceries at Target. She smiled. A dog is barely a blip on the scale of life changes I've made for this family. When you put it that way. Exactly. Besides, Chloe wants it. You want it. I want it. Close enough. She closed the dishwasher and turned to him. This is what normal families do, right? Get dogs, go to Disney World, have regular Sunday dinners. Pretty much. Then that's what we'll do. Victoria moved into his arms. I'm all in, Ethan. On this whole messy, beautiful experiment we're running, whatever that includes. Even the dog. Even the dog. From the living room, Chloe's voice rang out. I'm looking at rescue dogs online. There's one named Pancake. We have to get Pancake. Ethan and Victoria both laughed. Welcome to family life, Ethan said. Wouldn't have it any other way, Victoria replied. And looking at her, his brilliant, complicated, formerly lonely wife, who was now seriously considering adopting a rescue dog named Pancake, Ethan believed her completely. They'd come so far from that night in the break room, from crying alone to building something real together. From watching happiness from a distance to living it every chaotic, imperfect day. It wasn't the fairy tale ending people expected. It was better. It was real. And it was theirs.